Chapter 12: Digital Childhood and Youth. Introduction. Children and young people's lives have become enmeshed in technological development. Sorry about my talking at the moment. I've got a lisp because I've got a gum problem. The developments that offer engaging, interactive and thrilling online opportunities, and there is considerable discussion about children and young people's engagement with them. Smartphones, tablets and gaming consoles are advancing at a rapid pace, shaping children and young people's experiences and relationships. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality and augmented reality are further constructing how children and families interact with virtual and physical worlds. While many parents and media commentators are concerned that screen time in general may damage children's sleep, health and friendship, research findings indicate that it is more meaningful to think about the diverse forms and functions of digital screen use. Indeed, Isabella Granick, Hiromucho Morito and Hanny Scollerton assert that the term screen time is meaningless in the current landscape of digital application, platforms and mobile ubiquity. It may be more useful to think about the context in which screens are used, the content of the activity, and the potential connections that open up. The challenge, therefore, is how best to understand and manage both risks and opportunities that digital media present. Context: childhood in a digital age. Surveys from the global north report that younger children are using digital technologies even more frequently and even more so during and since the global COVID-19 pandemic. For some time, research has suggested that preschoolers become familiar with digital devices before they are exposed to books. And in the UK market, research company YouGov found that by the age of 6, 10% of children owned their own smartphones, with another 49% permitted use of a family device, while 40% of 6-year-olds had their own tablet and 85% had access to one. Many no longer type for digital searching commands and messages, instead favouring verbal and auditory communications via technologies such as Apple, Siri, Amazon, Alexa, and dedicated voice notes. It is important to note that a long-standing global digital divide continues to persist, a significant inequality between and within the world's richest and poorest countries in internet access that drives children's and young people's experiences in many countries. In the global south, digital exclusion is widespread. This chapter addresses children's lives in the global north, where the internet is seen as a basic necessity for economic and human development. Here too, however, digital exclusion affects the life chances of many children and young people in less resourced communities. Children and young people experiencing physical and virtual worlds can flow into one another to offer unique experiences and new hybrid reality of childhood and youth. For example, the Pokemon Go phenomenon, played by millions of people around the world, popularized AR. Pokemon Go uses location tracking via global positioning systems, mapping services, and camera on smartphones to overlay popular Nintendo Pokemon cartoon characters into a location images so they appear on the screen as if in the physical world. In this way, players explore the physical world while chasing and training virtual Pokemon. This is an example of social gaming, where offline and online experiences and activities are meshed together. However, darker sides to applications have been documented, such as the immersive Horizon world, VR in the metaverse, access through VR headsets that can track bodily information like eye movements, facial expressions, and body temperature. A report by the global non-governmental community advocacy organization, Some of Us, details many harms quickly encountered in the Horizon world, including virtual grooming, sexual, homophobic, and racist activities, and failure to act against users who violate the guidelines. These issues, among others, highlight the need to regulate digital media for children and young people well-being, report violations, and create measures that protect children online while facilitating their rights to information and participation in digital media. Children and young people's screen use through a global pandemic. In 2020, nearly 3 billion people worldwide were forced to shelter at home, as many countries enacted restrictions to limit the spread of COVID-19. Nearly 90% of children and young people in the global north were physically cut off from their school and communities, and technology quickly became central in their access to learning, peers and virtual play. Social media and networking platforms replaced schools and playgrounds as places where many children connected with friends and family. This accelerated a focus on children and young people's use of technologies. Some academics, such as psychologist Jean Tweng, raised concern that digital screen use is harming young people's social and emotional well-being, with claims that increased social media use is contributing to rising mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, and suicidal behaviors. In contrast, other psychologists, such as Amy Orban, conclude that social media use does not, from the data available to date, appear to be strongly associated with adolescents' well-being, including depressive symptoms. Other studies have found limited negative effects or even benefits with greater screen time. And therefore, some social media use. To understand these contrasts, Orban suggests it might be useful to differentiate and the emotional and social outcomes. They're making it sound like computers are new. We had them as children, and they've just got better since. What do you think we did when we were little? And I'm like 48 this year. Of social media use. For example, social media might have a negative effect on emotional outcomes, mood or depression, but a positive effect on social outcomes, social connectedness. However, there is still no clear answer because effects of social media vary across users and timeframes. Twang indicates that more research is needed before screen time limits are justified. Yeah, it's a crazy idea. You always have these cougar mothers, I believe. They're like, oh, you can't watch ITV. You're only allowed to watch that channel. And silly things like that. Ridiculous. Psychologist Candice Odgers and Michelle Line Jensen note the current research is unable to deliver the clear guidance that policymakers, educators, parents, and adults themselves require. They argue for future investments in online research and interventions to better support adolescents who now spend much more of their time in digital spaces. In a qualitative study of children and their parents on technologies using during the lockdown in Denmark in the spring of 2020, Thomas Lundtoft interviewed 20 children aged 2 to 12 years and their parents about their everyday lives, digital habits, social relations, and general well-being. Interviews were carried out using online video conference software, e.g. Zoom, and the children filled out so-called time capsules where they could draw and write about their experiences beforehand, although all children had used digital technologies more than usual for communication and entertainment. The research team highlighted significant differences between younger children, 7 years and under, and older ones, 8 years and above. Young children had little contact via social media with other children and were dependent on parents helping them with technologies for remote learning. God blimey. My youngest daughter, she'd been using a laptop probably from age 1. And by age 2, she was starting to get the hang of it. Older children had more well-established digital practices, and they were able to maintain social relations with other children and independently use the digital devices for online learning. Children and parents experienced new ways of using digital technologies, and while their encounters were not without conflict or frustration, some parents in the study expressed some level of surprise after realizing how their primary younger children had positive experiences with digital technologies. Much advice about screen time for children was first formulated prior to COVID-19 pandemic. For example, the American Academy of Pediatrics, which had previously endorsed strict limits on screen time for young children, recommended rethinking this in light of the pandemic, instead focusing on the activities children are engaged in rather than the time children spend on screen. The app suggested that adults use screens along with younger children, that they set boundaries on where, when, and how adolescents use their devices, and that screen use could not replace physical activities or interfere with sleeping patterns and quality of sleep. My oldest daughter, I used to just plonk the indestructible tablet made by Tommy, put a Walt Disney SD card in, and she's just watch a movie and go to sleep. People make a fuss about these things like it's somewhat difficult. And, she probably watched the same movie because she liked it like 365 times a year. To interact with people in their lives was beneficial in many ways during the strict periods of lockdown, and that is after a bedtime story. However, that also emerged that the need for children and young people's equitable access to technology, as noted previously, even in high-income countries, there are differences between households in their availability of reliable broadband internet connections and devices to support online education and communication. Key points. Children's physical everyday life and their virtual experiences, digital life, have become meshed together in new hybrid reality. I suppose it comes down to the neurotypical people not being very correct and accurate and paying attention to the detail, and me being neurodivergent with dyslexia and thinking differently. Much of the advice available, or is it the fact that I had a computer since a child, or console, the first console, Pong, playing tennis, and then the Atari, and on and on. Much of the advice available about screen time was written prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Researchers involved in children and required to clarify the impact to different kinds of screen use. It's probably them sort of people that study psychology, isn't it? To write these things that they think they can then justify how they control other people instead of worrying about themselves. Current research recommends considering the activities children are engaged in rather than the time children spend on screen. Greater safeguards are needed for immersive digital environments. There are significant inequalities between and within countries, and internet access and exclusion continue to affect children and young people's access and experiences. I suppose internet's like drinking. You can either drink like a European from a young child and be completely fine with alcohol, or you can be completely sheltered from it to the age of 18, where you binge on it and become very ill. So you can, in the internet term of that is, the world is a dangerous place. There are dangerous people, and you become aware of it because you use the internet and you see it every day. Being streetwise, but on the computer. Most kids are the trolls, aren't they? Winding people up, messing about, having a life. Children and young people's screens use at home. Researchers face particular challenges when seeking to understand children's technology experiences at their homes. Parents and carers often maintain control over their digital devices and software that children and young people access. That's an interesting statement. I buy a laptop for my son to use. He logs in with his credentials, which automatically put him under the parental controls of his mum's house, and therefore was unable to do anything. Wasn't able to update it, wasn't able to virus check it. Basically, created loads of vulnerabilities and made it really dangerous because it wasn't updated, it wasn't virus scanned. And I had to basically override parental controls by doing a certain thing just so it could be normal. Weird. Digital device and software that children and young people access through direct parental surveillance or restrictive tools. Additionally, due to negative attitudes towards children and young people's technology use often presented in the media. He had unrestricted computer use because we never told his mum, and we removed the parental controls that they had set up. And he turned out perfectly fine and normal. He's hardworking. And I've forgotten where I was going with it. Never mind. Children and young people's technology use often presented in the media. Some parents can be reluctant to share with researchers their child's home practices, play, and learning with technology due to the fears of being judged negatively. Laidlaw and colleagues noted that parents became less panicked as popular articles began to shift their focus to more balanced examinations of the challenges and benefits of technology. As children and young people are expert in their lives, it is a good practice to involve them as active research participants. For example, when seeking to understand children's experiences of digital media in the home. Show and tell tours invite a child to lead the research around their home using a digital recorded app, enabling a focus on their activities and passions. Jackie Marsh and her colleagues use a mixed methods approach to collect data when working with children aged up to 5 years during 6 visits to each household. The researchers interviewed parents and children's videoed and photographed children while they used the apps and asked parents to do so, and invited children to wear GoPro cameras attached to their chest harness and to lead researchers on play and creativity tours at home, identifying the spaces and places where they played both on and offline. These play tours yielded rich information about how the digital and non-digital convergence and divergence in children's play across virtual and physical worlds. Marshall concluded that contemporary play draws on digital and non-digital properties and moves fluidly across boundaries of space and time. For example, Lego countries to be a passion for many children and young people. They can move fluidly across virtual and physical spaces using Lego apps on a tablet and smartphones, as well as original Lego bricks. Lego fans participate in online communities by uploading videos of their physical Lego play or producing digital films made in Lego computer games using a screen capture software. This illustrates how physical toys can be used in virtual spaces and how the two modalities can flow into one another, engaging with and listening to, and the views and experience of children and young people can enhance understanding of contemporary play and new ways of using and learning with technologies. It also provides opportunities to explore safety measures and reporting mechanisms that safeguard children and young people. Key points: research exploring children and young people's own views and experiences can enhance our understanding of how they engage with play and learn from digital technology. Fruitful inquiry for contemporary hybrid realities could include what it means for children and young people to move fluidly across virtual and physical spaces, developing a deeper engagement with activities and their learning.